Evening all, welcome back to Space Engineers, and today we are going to continue our epic voyage of figuring out if that rig works or not. There we go. Technical term, I think. It's looking pretty good at the moment though, so yeah. I must admit, this is the one game that really does just make me go all quivery and happy when it comes to building stuff. It must be the geek in me, the engineer in me, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's just working lovely, and there's nothing better than having a little project. So you think to yourself, well, it's a Sunday afternoon, what am I going to do? And you think to yourself, well, let's go and build this, let's go and build that. And I think, the last few videos have shown you some of those, I guess, elongated Sunday afternoons where I've kind of thought to myself, well, it'd be good to have a production facility. And we kind of got there. I haven't really shown it that much because I tell you what, I need to just sit and actually build the blueprints properly, because none of my blueprints are really that properly built yet. So, you know, oh well, there we go. But one of the key things I really did want to get under the belt was this rig thing. It's still taking massive damage from the asteroid, so I think the asteroid is nothing's moving here, but I suspect it's a bit of programming bugs or something that just suggests that there might be, or something. Because I mean, it could be that I've switched the engines off. That was probably the stupidest thing I could have done. I get the feeling it is. So every, like for example, when I dock this to the rig, it probably just twats the rig against the rock, so that's why I think I get problems. But anyway, there we go. So as you can see, we've now got top and bottom exhaust ports, as Darth Vader would say. And yeah, so you know, that's it. So we're now connected and we can then mine, etc. So now the only problem is definitely recommend doing a proper landing gear configuration, because this one does not work. This one is pretty poor, and at one point I'm actually at risk of smashing the whole rig apart. So you know, it's all, you know, you live and learn. Engineering was always a trial and error thing. You know, they used to build bridges across ravines and then sort of leave it a bit and see if it fell down. You know, that's kind of what, and that's how they learn. You know, then they started to work about force calculations and bends of cantilevers and all that, you know, ridiculous stuff. And all of a sudden, and this is fascinating because, like, in the old Victorian age, when, you know, Britain ruled the world, just saying, bro, they used to build stuff with a safety factor of like 3,000 or 4,000. So it's 3,000 or 4,000 times stronger than it needs to be. Now, this is the one thing that will scare you. Because accountants rule the world, when they build stuff nowadays, in this could be a building, a plane, a bridge, it could be anything, literally anything. Now it's built with around a factor of about 3, 1.5 to 3. So that means if they build a bridge, it just basically has to be 3 at most, 3 times as strong as it needs to be, which you may say, well, that's still quite a lot. That's 300% as strong as it needs to be. But when you think about it, this is why Britain is still managing to run, because all of the crap they built over 100 to 200 years ago is still there. So when I go to work every day on the train to the old big smoke of London, the reality is what I'm actually going over every 3 or 4 miles is the bridges that the Victorians made. And the only reason they're still going and having, you know, trains run across them every day is because they were built with such ridiculous use of materials, and, you know, bolts the size of a football. I mean, that's the thing to bear in mind. Most Victorian stuff, because they didn't understand about safety factors and such, they just built them with massive bolts, and those bolts will last 1,000 years, let alone like 2 or 3. You know, I mean, it's funny because when you think about it now, when they build buildings now, so things like the Empire State Building, that's a good example. That was built in what, the 20s, 30s, something like that, and it was probably built again with a safety factor of like 200-300. But whereas what they do now, and I know this because this used to be my job, is when they build buildings now, so stuff that, you know, was built in Canary Wharf, for example, is built basically to last about 20 years, and then that's it. They'll just knock it down and build another one. So it's pretty scary. Anyway, what the hell am I talking about? Let's talk about Space Engineers. When it comes to building your ships, one of the things I would recommend is you do build it with that safety factor discussion in the back of your head, because one of the things I have about the SquadB flagship, as you can see, look, it's got a remote control now. That was just something all of that effort just to build a remote control. It's just because I wanted to be able to bring the ship closer. I wanted to do that thing in Star Trek or Star Wars when he looks up and bleeps his wristwatch controller and starts to bring the ship into orbit. I just wanted to do that. It just looked cool. Anyway, so when you build your ships, I would just have a bit of a consideration as to how safe they are. So, if you think a single skin hull is fine, you're probably not. It's probably going to be actually not fine. If you can get away with it, a double skinned hull is maybe the better option. So it's this kind of thing. Look at that shadow. That looks pretty awesome, doesn't it? Now, you probably are noticing, the observant among you are noticing that the rig has got no engines on, and it's also just had its main leg snapped off. So this thing is free floating, and it takes me a while to notice it, and I'm still not noticed it. But as you can see, yep, I think I've just noticed it there. But as I maneuver my wonderful big ship into position, I just realised the hangar door's open. Then that's interesting. I realise at this point that yep, the thing is adrift. So I'm now mashing buttons in a panicky way to switch the engines back on, and there we go. And I think at this point I'd kind of had enough, so I was like, do you know what, the concept works. I was going to sit and do some mining, but I thought, do you know what, this is a proto run. So I've run the prototype, it works, I'm happy with it. I think that's cool. And I think at this point I was just of the opinion that let's do a final check, and then let's see what the damage was. As you can see, the damage is pretty bad, and I think at this point I was quite happy just to park it back up and then redesign some of the bits, because some of the bits definitely needed a look at. I would honestly just try and avoid having the flatbed too close to the rock. So you see here we even had steps down in the middle because I wanted to make it so you could just step onto the rock. I would probably recommend that that's not the best thing to do. But anyway, that's the concept. I loved it. I think this ability to kind of migrate, and I think that's how we would have to play this game and how we would be in real life, is you would be migratory. You would actually have ships that all lock into each other and then move around. So think Independence Day. That was obviously a big, a kind of alien ship that just broke into parts, conquered worlds, and then they had other parts that probably broke off and then dropped to the planet to take all its resources. That's how I would imagine that you would have to act in the Space Engineers way. Now, what's interesting is there's just been a dev blog about planets. So planets are going to come into Space Engineers, and they're going to be like 100 kilometers wide and stuff like this. So I'm not too sure how that's going to work, but I can't wait to see. I think this game is still incredibly exciting. Every Thursday they're developing new stuff for the game, sometimes small, sometimes big, and I honestly think these are good times to be playing games like this. It's funny because I think a lot of the time you almost don't want the development to finish because you want the game just to keep evolving. It really is games as a service. That's the way a lot of gaming is going now. And I suspect that things like this and H1Z1 get so many people playing it and excited about it because there's always new things coming in, new toys to play with. It's certainly what Minecraft had, but then Minecraft, I think they're still doing this, but it doesn't seem as much. So I think this is an interesting kind of byproduct of modern game development, is this ability to continually change and evolve the game, which is awesome. Look at that. So there we go. Our entire rig suite is, I guess, I'm going to give it a mission success. I think it's not been totally a success, but the concept works. And I think there is definitely a pleasurable part about having everything modular. So yes, I've got refineries and stuff on the flagship, but that's fine. We'll keep them. But having them also be able to plug into the mothership and then act as a massive industrial backup is nice. I like the fact that I've now got 20 assemblers. Now I still can't get them to work in slave mode all the time, so that's really buggy. I'm really disappointed in that, but everything else looks just great and it works great. And look at that, it just looks fantastic, doesn't it? I love it. I just think this is the definite, I guess, sales point of the game, that it just gives you the ability to do stuff like this, and this modular ability to redock, and then fly the ship elsewhere. I love it so much. One of the things you'll see in the next video, it may be a while before we do the next video, just for many reasons, but what I'm keen to do with the ship is give it a gravity drive. So if you know what that is, then thumbs up. If you don't, let me quickly explain. A gravity drive is just where you set a number of gravity engines or gravity generators to act upon artificial mass blocks linked to the ship, and then it propels the ship forward. That's it. And if you've got enough of them, you can pretty much instantly get top speed, so you're not having to use as much fuel, etc. So to me, that is definitely one of the key things this ship needs, because it's getting very slow with all of this addition. It's getting very slow, so I think we're going to really push that as a concept. But here we go. So we're redocking. I know this is such a giant train set. This has got to be like, you know, if you can't understand this game, then you probably never had a train set, or I don't know, you've probably never built something in a game that you've not wanted to destroy. Do you know what I mean? I was very similar. Don't get me wrong. I was very similar to this. I was like, oh, can I make ships and blow them up? And then all of a sudden, I just found the joy of making it actually probably a bit more fun than blowing them up. I know, shock horror, but to me, I find this incredibly relaxing, and you know, in modern life with the stress levels that we all have, these are important therapeutical things. But look at that. So we're going to go into dock. It then merges and then becomes part of the wider ship. Merge blocks have definitely become better than they were. They were the most buggy pieces of crap I ever encountered before. But now I'd say they're pretty flawless. I don't think I've ever crashed once when it merges. As you can see, look at that. They're going green and almost snapped on. Clunk, there we go, and we're now connected. Now we've lost our connector, so I need to rebuild that, but this then becomes, and this is the beauty of the game, is that, and the coding of the game, is that this is now linked to the ship and then basically you know, ready to be used. And now I had to switch all the gravity off. Now I could mess about with the gravity and make it so there's multiple gravity fields, but for now I'm not too worried about it. As you can see, look, it's flipped me about as the ship's gravity is kicked in, but I'm not too worried about that. But what it does need is we need to go and repair that and make it all work again. Plus I noticed I've got a turret there. That probably should go. But, you know, this is it. It's looking pretty sweet. I think it kind of works. And I think this is definitely one of the more enjoyable parts of the game. So, yeah. One of the key things I would suggest when you play this game is to have a piece of paper next to you when you play it. And, you know, if you're kind of like me, I actually don't have bright ideas. I have to really sit and think about them, and I watch videos and I'll do stuff that will just inspire me to do something. But if there's something you see, just write it down and draw out a little sketch of how you want it to look, because I think this game more than most will give you that that drive and that kind of idea. And then all you need to do is just freeform from that point. So, you know, as you saw with this thing, I just had the idea of a rig, almost like an oil rig, if you like. But I've envisaged much higher cranes and, you know, huge stanchions with like a mining arm off and that. So, you know, this is the kind of thing you do with a more permanent base, I guess. And I don't want to build them on something that I'm going to fly back and around with, because I think things like solar panels and cranes on rotors will be stressed and fly off at high speed. So yeah, that's the kind of thing you do once you want to build a permanent base. And then all you do is you switch on the projector in the capital ship. It will project the rig again, connected already, and then you can just sit and build it and weld it all in. I mean, that's the beauty of the projector system. Whoever came up with that is a bleeding genius, because it's exactly what you want. It just works. I love it. I love it so much. And the same with this. So, you know, if I ever lost my miner, which, you know, has happened before, I've flown it into a rock and it's just been, you know, pretty much destroyed. If I needed to, I could. And if I wanted another one, I could just detach it, move it, and then project the image of the ship, and then it will work. It's beautiful. It really works. And look at this. You can just have buttons to do your merge, and look at that, docked. And it's docked. And then all I need to do is just remember to switch the batteries to recharge, because you'd be amazed the amount of time I forget that. But just again, having it on the button works perfectly. I'm even going to, now that they've actually set up, in the latest patch, they've set up so you can actually see named buttons. We're going to build a load of named buttons throughout the ship so we can see that. And there we go. The ship is now back, ready. And in the next episode, we're going to look at gravity drive.